Om Niranjanam Nityam Anantarupam Bhaktanukampadhrita Vai Ishavataram Parameshamidhyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasha Namamaha. Namaste and welcome to our study of the Bhagavad Gita. We're going to start chapter 12 after completing chapter 13. And since we didn't record the last time, this will be again a restart of the whole thing. For those who missed out, this will be a revision. So I have shared the notes, class notes with you all, and hope you had time to go through them and have an overview of the whole chapter 12. We will go as we did in chapter 13 through the individual verses, and then we will go into the deeper meaning in the sense of application of what is the message of Sri Krishna about how and why this special yoga, very conducive for this age, Kali Yuga, as Sri Ramakrishna would say, is to be practiced. And we will try to get some references from different other sources that can enlighten us about what is bhakti, understanding it deeply, and different types of bhakti. That's called Parabhakti, Vaidhi Bhakti. Vaidhi Bhakti is when you do the various rituals and ceremonies in a very ritualistic way, without really going into deeper, into the, and when that bhakti matures, it becomes what is called Parabhakti, where we more or less do away with those preliminary rituals and things. And at that time, the devotee is basically in so much attracted to the divine that most of those rituals and ceremonies automatically fall off. Other ways to say is he transcends that. His worship goes to the next level. So there are different stages of bhakti and different ways of practicing it. But as a start, in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11, when Shri Krishna revealed himself, the universal form, Vishwarup, he showed to Arjuna, that what appears to an ordinary person as a human being, as Krishna, is really a supreme being whose vision is obtained by the grace of the divine being. For example, when Arjuna wanted to know about that primeval Purusha, the supreme person, Krishna said, look, you cannot see me with these ordinary eyes. I will need to give you what is he called Divya Chakshu, the spiritual eye, the divine eye. And when that was bestowed to Arjuna, he noticed that instead of the usual Krishna standing there, he saw that cosmic form in which all the gods and goddesses were present in one person. He saw that the past and the future of everyone, the war that had not started had virtually finished, and all those things were seen in the divine personality. And then the impact of that vision was so overpowering that Sri Arjuna could not withstand that, and eventually he begged him to say, can you please go back to the ordinary form? So from this we understand that two things. One, divine grace is necessary. Secondly, one must have that purity of mind. That is what is obtained through sadhana. Sadhana is for chitta shuddhi, purification of the mind. So whatever spiritual experience happens, one would be able to withstand the reaction of that spiritual experience. A spiritual experience is like a tremendous amount of power that will flow from a divine source through the mind. And if the mind is not pure enough, it will not be able to withstand the reaction. It is like if there's an ordinary thin wire and you connect to a power, ordinary low voltage, a small current flows through that. But when you connect it to a very high voltage, the huge current that will flow through that will virtually melt it. They say it's become fused. Likewise, mind that is not very pure would have a lot of difficulty with standing a reaction. Sri Krishna, Ramakrishna would say, hey, look, if an elephant enters a small pond, half of the water will splash out of the thing. But if it enters a huge lake, you get a few ripples around there. So in sadhana, we try to develop that capacity. That's why silently, quietly, one has to persevere in that path. And when one is ready, then the particular God bestows his vision and the devotee is able to receive that. With that, towards the end of chapter 11, Sri Krishna taught in the last verse, Mat karma krit, mat parmo, mat bhakta, sanga varjita, nirvaira sarva bhuteshu samameti pandava. O Arjuna, Pandava, he who works for me, mat karma krit, mat parmo, he who accepts me as the supreme goal, who is devoted to me, mat bhakta, sanga varjita, who is devoid of any all attachments. Nirvaira means free from all enmity, from all nirvaira sarva bhuteshu, free from all enmity towards all beings. Such a person, mameti pandava. So basically, he has given a set of disciplines for the devotee to practice. And from this, we should take note and think how we can incorporate these uh, practices in our everyday life, because the result, what Sri Krishna promises, is that such a person or the mind of such a person becomes united with the Supreme Being. The Jivatma becomes united with the Paramatma, which is the goal, what we call God realization. So, Mat Karma Krit, it's good to reflect on that. Each one of you have to think deeply and with respect to the life that you live, the work that you do, and ask yourself in a very clinical, analytical way, sincere way, how much of the work that I do is for me, or how much of it is there where I carry that understanding that it is work as worship, or the divine dwells in my heart and he is the real doer, or she is the real doer, whichever way you want to perceive the divine as a he or she or as it. But that there is a spiritual consciousness in me, and the activities of the mind, the senses, the body, the all these activities are only possible when that consciousness is present there. And therefore, the result of those actions should rightly go to uh, that supreme power within us, or the consciousness that is within us, which is a part of the universal consciousness, but should not be appropriated to itself by the ego. So that I am the doer, I am the enjoyer. Idea should be supplemented by I'm an instrument of the divine. How much during our day, during our activities, are we able to hold on to that idea? That would be mat karma krit. Mat paramo, having me as the supreme goal. Then the question that is asked is how many of us really have God realization, self realization as the supreme goal of our life? Or the mind is intent on getting the happiness and things of this world and invest its time and energies in that. So different people will have different degrees. They will say, okay, I need this world also. But I also understand that ultimately everything here is transient. Nothing will last. And therefore, I should not excessively be obsessed with this world, so to say. Sangavarjita, devoid of attachments. It is the mind that feels that the world is real, that happiness is out there, the peace is out there, beauty, goodness, everything is there outside. With that understanding, or rather misunderstanding, it begins to it gets extroverted because it thinks the world is real. When we, through our analysis, through buddhi, discrimination, analyze that, look, everything here is only an appearance. Nothing is permanent, asat. But the truth inside me is the ultimate reality. And when that discrimination becomes strong and sharp, then it enables the mind to detach itself from the things of the external world, and thus being freed from the external attachments, it can be directed inwards towards the Supreme Being. So it's all about the mind. If the mind is excessively attached, then we are bound, attached to the external world. When it's attached to God, then it is called devotion. And that type of attachment is good. So it should be attachment to God or the divine within selves and detachment from the outside world. Jagater prati vairagya, Ishwarar prati anuragya. Okay, that's the idea. Jagat means that which is constantly changing. With respect to the world, one should have vairagya, dispassion, detachment. With respect to the divine, one should cultivate devotion. Anurag means you love and affection to that being. So this is that Sangha Varijita. Nirvaira Sarva Bhuteshu. In life, we are going through meeting, interacting with people, good and bad. And mostly, whenever we find people who are not aligned with our ideas and thoughts or harmful to us, then the reaction is that there's hatred, enmity to such a person. That is very harmful to the spiritual practitioner. One can harbor such hatred in one's mind. The other person might not have any idea that this is the attitude of you towards him. But the person who harbors such hatred, enmity towards others, dislike for others, uh, and it could be somebody that has totally nothing to do with you. For example, we in our life we get so much information about so many people, and people are naturally judgmental, and they'll say, I don't like, I like this person, and then at some point if that firms up into a stronger opinion or dislike for that person. Well, he have nothing to do with him and he has nothing to do with you, but such a mental attitude forms, and that is more harmful for the devotee, the seeker of God, because on one hand, God realization means I want to be that ocean. That ocean means all the waves are part of me. But on the other hand, if I say, do the exact opposite and say, no, those waves are different from me. So basically, this type of attitude prevents that integration of the mind into that universal being, because we are harboring attachments or dislikes to individuals at the surface level. The mind does not go deep inside. So a spiritual seeker constantly explores and watches the mind. What is my attitude towards the world, people? And one must, if they find even a speck of dislike or enmity for anyone, then one must be ruthless in weeding that out. If you leave them there like a small plant that grows in the garden and you don't pluck it out when it's early, the longer you leave it, the stronger the plant becomes, the more difficult it would be to uproot it. So one has to be very, very vigilant, and as they call it, nip it in the bud. That type of regular introspection, reflection is necessary. So if we practice that, Nirvaira Sarva Bhuteshu, such a person, Mameti Pandava. That means that mind of that person becomes fit to be united or attain oneness with the Supreme Being. So this is the last teaching from the chapter uh, 11. Then chapter 12 starts with Arjuna stopping and asking that question. So Arjuna Uvacha, this is a question. Evam satata yuktaye bhaktastvam pariyupasate ye chapyaksharam avyaktam tesham ke yoga vittamaha. Evam means thus. Thus means referring to the previous the last verse of the chapter 11. That's why I took some time to refer to that. So the running translation is, Arjuna said, those devotees who are thus ever dedicated. That means practicing those 5 qualities that we discussed in the earlier chapter just now. So They are intent on realizing God and they're very sincere. They have seen the universal form. They want to be united. And the Lord has promised that if you practice these disciplines as taught there, then that person would ultimately be reunited with God or with the Supreme Being. And therefore, they have taken that as a sadhana. So, this is one category of devotees. Those devotees who are thus dedicated meditate on you. Okay, and those again who meditate on the immutable and unmanifested. Of them, who are the best? Who are the best? Who have the best experience of yoga? Who are the best yogis? Yoga Vittama. So, apart from this, so the divine, the ultimate reality, it can have, it can be understood or grasped, or mind can attempt to be to realize it as Nirgun Nirakara or Sagun Sakara. Guna means qualities, attributes. Sagun means with qualities. Nirgun means without qualities. Akara means form. Sakara means with form. Nirakara means without form. So there are some devotees who don't like to meditate on any particular form or aspect of God. They want to meditate directly on that supreme, nameless, formless, attributeless, transcendental Brahman. And so Sri Krishna is saying these are the two categories. Those who worship you the way you have just told us on the personal God with name and form and all wonderful qualities that Sri Krishna revealed and Arjuna described in great detail, that itself forms a type of meditation. And on the other hand, we see these Advaitins who say the divine, who follow the path of neti, na iti. That means it is without name, without its form, without qualities. It's beyond the mind, beyond the senses, in a way that takes off all those qualities and forms of the divine. So there are such people also, seekers of the truth. So evam satata yuktaye. Satata means ever devoted. It's not that they're part-time devotees, like on a Saturday or Sunday, go to the church and do a prayer and that's it, type of thing. Constantly, a part of their mind is ever engaged, like the compass of the needle is ever pointing to the north, so that they do not lose the direction. And with a little bit of that mind, remaining mind, they manage their livelihoods and things. You don't require the whole 100% of the mind to do your work. You can train your mind that part of it can be used for work, the other part can be engaged, meditative or contemplative, anchored within. So, Satata Yukta, being ever devoted, remaining unceasingly engaged in the works of the Lord, Pariyupasate, meditate. Upasana is the root word there. Upa asana, upavasa. Upa means nearby. Asana means seat. Upasana means I take my seat next to. Upavas, vas means to live. Ah, and upavas means to live by. So when people fast, they will say, I'm having observing upavas today, fasting. The idea is not that today you're not eating and drinking. The idea is that I am going to keep my mind in contemplation or meditation of divine, of God. That is the real upasana. And just because if you eat too much and all that, you feel a little tired and sleepy and all that, therefore you cut that down. And that's the whole idea. But if the whole thing has just boiled down to eating and not eating, and there's no effort to keep the mind on God through meditation, through prayer, through devotional songs, whatever, then it's good for the body, but the spirit is not helped very much. So, such people who are unceasingly attached, that means meditate on whom? Tvam, in the cosmic form revealed earlier, because that was the whole idea. This is my cosmic form. Arjuna describes in great details the various attributes. So, name and form. Saguna, Sakara. Akara is that cosmic form, and gunas are described in great detail in chapter 11. And so these people are one class of seekers who are the devotees, so to say. To them, God is a person out there as as a divine being, and they are the devotees of that being. So it's a relationship between God and the devotee. And also, so cha in yecha api means also, and those others again who have renounced all desires and given up all actions and who meditate on Brahman. Brahman means that infinite being, Brihat, vast, limitless. What is that Brahman? Well, it cannot be said by as something as this, because the moment you define it with any definition, with any word, with any attribute, you have limited it. And Brahman means limitless, infinite. So it is described as aksharam, immutable. Mutation means that which is changing. So things in the world are immutable. Names and forms are coming. A child is born and keeps on mutating, becomes a grown-up person, old person, and disappears. The form appears and disappears. The wave rises out of the ocean and merges back into the ocean. But the ocean itself, as a totality, is immutable. It doesn't appear and it does not disappear, type of thing. So this Brahmagyanis, followers of the meditators in Brahman, contemplate on that vast limitlessness of that supreme consciousness. And avyaktam, unmanifest. Manifest means all these names and forms, the waves on the surface of the ocean in different forms, whether it's a plant or animal or gods or whatever, they're all manifestations. Bhur all the beings in the seven planes of consciousness, seven lokas, they're all manifestation, products of Prakriti. And but Brahman itself is the unmanifest. So this Brahma Gyan is the seekers of Brahman contemplate on the Supreme Being as Aksharam Avyaktam. Of them, Tesham, of these two groups, K, who are Yoga Vittama, best experiences of yoga. That means surpassingly versed in spiritual absorption or samadhi. So this is the question that Arjuna asks. That means he's asking, of course, the idea is people say, I will take the best path, what is good for me, or what's best for me. And let us see what is the answer that Sri Krishna gives. So he says, Maya Veshya Manoyamam Nitya Yukta Upasate Shraddhaya Paryopeta Teme Yukta Tama Mataha. The meaning, let's have a look. The Supreme Lord, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, he said, Uvacha means he said, those who meditate on me by fixing their minds on me with steadfast devotion and being endowed with supreme faith, they are considered to be the most perfect among yogis according to me. Me mataha. Mata means my, according to my opinion, my view. So let's have a look at the word to word meaning. My aveshya. Bhagwan, aveshya means by fixing their mind on. My means in me. Okay. So those ye being devotees, upasate, we have discussed the meaning, meditate, mam, on me. Here it means the Supreme Lord with all of all the masters of yoga, the omniscient one, whose vision is free from all pervertedness caused by such defects as attachment. So the divine is free from all attachments. All the defects that are in the human mind, the divine is free from that. That supreme being is contemplated on as described and shown to Arjuna in chapter 11. So those who meditate on me, how? Aveshya, by fixing their minds, mana, upon me, mai, that means God in his cosmic form. Nitya yukta. Nitya means always. Yukta means to be, yukta means to join. That means devoted. That means with steadfast devotion. And being upeta means endowed, paraya. supreme Shraddhaya, faith. So the second quality is that not only they have steadfast devotion, but they are endowed with this supreme faith. What does faith mean? Shraddha. Shraddha is a word that's very difficult to explain. The word, the translation meaning given there as faith, doesn't do justice to it. It's not just believing, having faith, it is a reverential attitude of the mind to whatever object or person that you are having Shraddha. There's a great degree of reverence in there. There's a great degree of sincere love there. And along with that, of course, comes that surrender, because uh, you have that faith in the grace of that being and the power of that being. It is like more not something to understand, but more of a feeling. And the best way probably is the child's relationship with the mother. So try to see it from the child's perspective. And to that child, the mother is all powerful. And she'll do anything and everything. She is full of energy and love, and the child can totally depend on that. There's absolutely no doubt in the child's mind that I cannot, I'm going to take any risk and believe in depending on this person. So that type of relationship with the divine itself frees the mind from so many problems. When there is lack of faith in God, then we are trying to keep our own, uh, what they say, uh, but have to fetch and take care of ourselves in case God is not there to take care of them for us. But when total dependence and faith is there, then in such a mind, you don't have to worry about what you need, where it's going to come from, because you have that faith, that Shraddha, that the divine is going to provide for that. And actually, if we have one has gets that Shraddha, deep faith, it's not some pretension that I'm just saying. It is a genuine attitude of the mind that doesn't waver from that feeling. It is the unshakable faith, just like the anvil of a blacksmith, as they say. No matter what people might say and all the logic they might give and this and that, the faith of that person doesn't waver, doesn't shake. So this is a deep, meaningful word, Shraddha, that is difficult to explain but easier to experience. And so this is a important quality. And towards the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says, anyone who can surrender themselves to me totally, I will take care of what they have and bring whatever they need. That is total dependence. If it is there, then it's only possible. Mostly the human mind doesn't have that type of faith, begins to calculate and say, oh, maybe might work, might not work, and all that. For example, Sri Ramakrishna in the gospel will tell to the devotees when they come and tell him, oh, I can't meditate, I'm having difficulty concentration and this and that. Then Sri Ramakrishna would say, look, if you can't do that, then why don't you give the power of attorney to God? Power of attorney means like when a child has inherited something but has not come up to age for 18 years or whatever, then the court will appoint somebody to take care of the assets of that particular uh, teenager until they grow up. And those people have that power of attorney to act on behalf of them. So Sri Ramakrishna says, in Bengali they say bakalma, that's the word. And so he says, give that power of attorney to God. So there was one devotee. Now let me just tell that story. His name was Girish Chandra Ghosh, very sincere, but his lifestyle was not so disciplined. He would drink a lot and would not be able to follow a routine and all that. And Sri Ramakrishna asked him, think of God twice. That will be enough for you. Morning and evening, remember God. But this person is extremely sincere. Any other person would say, oh, no problem, I will do that. But he thought and reflected, he said, My God, in the evening I get drunk, and most of the time I have, what if I give my word and then don't keep it because I'm drunk and I can't remember God? So he was just reflecting like this and he said, even that is so difficult. You're not asking me to remember God all the time, just two times. So even there, my plight is that my habit is such that I can't think of you even twice, morning and evening. See, this truthfulness and that sincerity is very important because any other person probably would have said, that's easily done. I'll take the deal, sort of thing. So he sort of said this to Sri Ramakrishna, and then Sri Ramakrishna said, oh, if you can't even think of, remember God twice, then why don't you give the power of attorney to him? And Girish thought, oh, that's very easy. Then I don't have to do anything. Now, everything he will do. That's so nice. So I say, yes, I'm happy to give. Afterwards, he's writing, oh my God, this is even worse than the other, remembering twice. Now, because I have given the power of attorney, I can't do anything on my own without contemplating on him and thinking of him that, it through his grace or his permission, even the smallest things that should happen has to go through him now because I don't have any power. And now I'm constantly, I have to think about him. So that Shraddha, uh, that constant remembrance and connection uh, through surrender actually happens. Surrender doesn't mean that I have given up and now I don't have to bother. Surrender is actually a very difficult spiritual discipline because you have to constantly give up the doership and the result of all works. Nothing belongs to me. Everything happens through by his will, his grace. And whether good time comes, bad time comes, whatever, I can't do anything because I have lost all that power to even complain. I have left it to him. So I have to just forbear that. So that is a spiritual discipline, not easy to practice. But I'm just trying to explain there. So Sri Krishna says these are the two things that he wants. He says, those who meditate on me by fixing their mind on me with steadfast devotion and being endowed with supreme faith, that whatever is necessary, since I have surrendered my everything to him, to the divine, and my faith is there that he will not let me down, therefore I am at peace. There's no stress and worry in the mind because he has totally surrendered himself and has that supreme faith. So this is the answer to Sri Arjuna's question. His question was something else. He was asking uh, to give a clear-cut answer whether the devotee who is focusing or meditating on the name and form of God, Saguna Sakara, or the one who is meditating on the Aksharam Avyaktam, the supreme, formless, immutable Brahman. Tell me which one is the better way. And Sri Krishna doesn't really answer in the same way. He says, hey, look, those who meditate on me with by fixing their mind, either you are using the form and the attributes, or you are meditating on the Supreme Being as Brahman, as the formless and attributeless being. The important thing is not to go about saying in an objective way that is better or this is better. It is more about what is happening in your own mind that is the important thing. See, we normally try to make a discrimination by looking at things objectively and looking at the attributes and saying, I will take this, and those things exist outside. So here Arjuna had personified or objectified God. There is this nameless and formless God. There is this God with attributes, and which of the two is better? Sri Krishna says, don't worry about the discrimination there. What I'm interested is, what is how is your mind disposed? Those are external supports. You can choose either one of them. But more important than about is, do you have that one pointedness or steadfastness, and do you have that faith? Either one of them will serve your purpose. The important thing is not what object or what aspect of the divine you're meditating on. The important thing is what is the state of your mind, what is happening inside there. because that is what you are going to do. You're not going to create and choose this particular aspect of God and says Shiva is there and or there is this absolute Brahman. So what? There are so many forms of God there. And if we say this is better, that is better, then we will miss the whole thing. The most important thing is the subjective aspect. What is happening in our own mind? How is the mind disposed? That does it have that one pointedness, that calmness, that supreme faith in whatever aspect we take up? That is more important than the external thing. I hope this idea becomes clearer, because many times in people's mind this type of doubts come, question come. What ideas should I follow? Which god should I worship? Shall I worship Rama or Krishna or Shiva or Durga or Christ or Buddha, or shall I worship the supreme Brahman, nameless and formless? All are external supports to help us develop that control and concentration of mind. And that concentrated mind actually is the one, the important thing that leads to self realization. The form of the God to which we are devoted, that doesn't matter. Actually, the divine is ultimately nameless and formless, but it reveals itself to the devotee or the seeker according to the constitution or the disposition of the mind. Same being. So the story is there that Sri Krishna and Rukmani are sitting there, and Hanuman is going to visit them. So Hanuman is greatly devoted to Rama. And so Krishna says, oh, I have to change my form to Rama, because Hanuman would not be satisfied with seeing this Krishna form, because he is so much devoted to that form, and therefore I have to reveal myself to him in that way. So this is called Ishtanishtha. Nishtha means uh, one's one pointed devotion to one aspect of God. Okay, so the answer was not given in the way answered exactly as Arjuna was asking, whether the worshippers of Brahman are superior or the worshippers of God with form, meditators on his divine qualities are superior. Sri Krishna brings about an important point here, and he says, look, the important thing is, are you able to fix your mind with steadfast devotion? And are you endowed with that supreme faith? If you have this, then you are the best among the yogis. What form, which aspect you are approaching, that is not so important. Important thing is cultivating these two things. So this is the whole essence of it. Steadfast devotion with supreme faith. Shraddhaya paryopetas teme yukta tamamata. Shraddhaya paryo. Supreme faith. Upeta means endowed. And maya veshya manoyamam. Nitya yukta upasate. Those who upasate, meditate on me, nitya yukta, always steadfast, whose minds are my, in me, aveshya means merged in me. So that is the whole idea. How do we understand this? It is like the wave that is now trying to integrate itself into the ocean. Whether he takes the support of the name and form, or meditates on the formless, nameless and formless being. Either way, he attains to the same goal. All right, any question there? You have no? All good? All right, so let's have a look at verse 3. So the question is it that the others who do not become, is it that the others do not become the best of yogis? So apart from these two, are they other spiritual practitioners? Would they never qualify to be the superior spiritual practitioners? The answer is no. But listen to what has been said as regards to them. So Sri Krishna then talks about various other uh, meditators of the Supreme. He says, Yetu aksharam anirdeshyam avyaktyam paryupasate sarvatragam achintam cha kutastham achalam dhruvam. So, but he differentiates between the two parts. Both are will lead to the same goal, but tu means however. Yetu aksharam anirdeshyam. Those, however, who meditate in every way on the immutable, the indefinable, the unmanifest, who is all pervading, incomprehensible, changeless, immovable, constant, these are all the qualities of Brahman. So there are such people there also. And what is that? So this verse 3 and 4 is to be read together. Sanyam indriya gramam sarvatra samabuddhya te prapnuvanti mameva sarvabhuta hite rataha. So what is the how do they practice? Yetu paryupasate, meditate in every way. Aksharam, that means on the immutable being. Anirdeshyam, the indefinable. Being manifest, it is beyond the range of words and hence it cannot be defined. Nirdeshyam means you define something. This is it. Anirdeshyam means it cannot be defined. Why? It is so fine that words cannot express, mind even cannot reach. Avyaktam, Vyakta means manifest, Avyakta means unmanifest. Potentially it is there, but it has not revealed itself. Like white light, potentially contains all the colors, but you don't see the colors. It's only when it passes through a prism and spreads out in the spectrum that we see all the colors come. So the white light is like the unmanifest state. Sarvatragam means all pervading. So it is not in any particular place, it is everywhere. Now you can see when we use these big words, what type of understanding or image the mind or support does the mind have to contemplate on? These are like, nothing positive is said. It's in like in a neti. No, it's not this, it's not this, it's not this. It is not mutable, it is not definable, it is not manifest, it is not in a particular place. Sarvatragam. Achintyam. Chintya means I should be able to conceive it in some way. Achintyam cha means inconceivable. Why? Because it is beyond the range of the senses and the mind. Because these five senses that we have, they are called the Jnana Indriyas. With the help of them, we form what is called a Chitta Vritti, some change in our Chitta, in a mind space, and that is our experience. And it could be a color or sound or taste or touch or smell and all those things. When in the absence of any change in the mind, how can you label it and have that experience? So it is inconceivable. Kutastham, changeless. Achalam, chalam means it is moving. Achalam means immovable. Dhruvam is constant. Same thing is constant. Is like unchanging or fixed. So these are the qualities of the Supreme Being. Those who meditate in every way on the immutable, the indefinable, the unmanifest, which is all pervading, incomprehensible, changeless, immovable, constant. Now you see how difficult it is. And then Sanyam Indriya Gramam. Okay. Sanyama means by fully controlling. Indriya Gramam, all the senses. So while they're contemplating on that Supreme Being in the core of their heart, at the same time, they're able to restrain the outward going tendencies of the senses. That means senses will try to drag the mind away, but they're able to restrain that. That itself is very, very difficult. Yes, we will see. It's everyone's experience is there. From childhood, uh, we are just extroverted. Whatever we like, we run after them, and therefore the mind doesn't have any reins to be controlled. The senses are not out of control. In the example that is given in the Kathopanishad, the body is the chariot, the horses are the senses. The five horses are connected, uh, to the hitched to the chariot. The reins are the ropes that are tied to the uh, and to the horse. So the reins are the mind, and the buddhi, the charioteer who is supposed to control the horses, is the intellect. Behind him is the rider. And the rider gives a direction. The buddhi should be alert and strong and powerful. It should be able to hold the horses under control, under a tight leash, as they say, and then guide them as per the direction. So the horses should behave and follow the instructions of the buddhi. Now, imagine if the buddhi is very weak, half drunk, asleep, absent minded, the ropes are very loose. What happens to the Indriyas, the horses? They have a free ride. They go wherever they want. Most people are like that. It's all on the whim of things. Sense enjoyments drag the mind here and there. The mind doesn't have that strong stamina, and the buddhi by which that mind will be controlled, that has not really been nurtured or systematically strengthened and developed, and therefore we are totally at the mercy of these horses. The poor plight of the rider, the jivatma, is terrible. So these spiritual seekers who are contemplating on the divine, they, through abhyasa, through practice, withdraw by fully controlling or withdrawing all the sense organs, indriya gramam, sarvatra samabuddhaya. Sarvatra means always. Samabuddhaya, being even minded. Sama buddhaya. Sama means same. Buddhaya means the mind is not like a pendulum that swings as a result of success and failure, happiness and misery, good and bad. It maintains equanimity in the midst of all changes. So it's very, very difficult, you might say. First, contemplating on that, on the Supreme Being, as I described uh, in the earlier verse, is very hard. Secondly, controlling all the senses, sanniyam indriya grama, sarvatra samabuddhaya, maintaining that equipoise or balance. If they follow that path, they also te prapnuvanti mameva. Mam eva means verily they attain me, not somebody else. Prapnuvanti, attain me. Mam eva alone. There's not another God that they will attain through this path. Sarva bhuta hite rataha. So sarva bhuta means all beings. Engage. Rata means engaged in. So while they're practicing all those things, they whatever work they do it for the welfare of all beings, not only for themselves, because they understand all waves are part of that ocean. I want to be that ocean, and therefore I have to make all those waves my own, not only myself and my family, and and that's where the boundary of my interest is there. That is called Maya. But God realization means you want to stretch out your arms and embrace the whole world and make your own. Good, bad, whatever they appear, they are also part of the same ocean that and that being that you are trying to achieve. So none is excluded, everyone is included, and all that we do are for the good of everyone. Now, you might say this is very, very difficult. Yes, it is very difficult. But even people practicing this path, they do not attain another God, another supreme being. Mameva. Te prapnuvanti mameva. Mam means me alone, no one else. So te prapnuvanti mameva. Having explained that the worshippers of the Brahman, the nameless and the formless and the immutable and Dhruvam and Kutastham, Achalam, Dhruvam, Sanya, all those attributes that have been explained, they also attain to the same being. So what's the big deal? But he says, क्लेशो अधिकतरस्तेषाम् अव्यक्त आसक्त चेतसाम् अव्यक्त ही गतिर दुःखम देहवद्भिद अवाप्यते. For them who have their minds attached to the unmanifest, the struggle is greater. For the goal, which is the unmanifest, is attained with great difficulty by the embodied being. So when we take a human body, we are born, There's great attachment to the body naturally. And this mind is also extroverted. So it is attached to one's own individuality, one's mind, one's likes and dislikes, one's opinions, one's views, and all that. And then that is bad enough. It goes out and attaches itself to other things out there with the idea of mind. This I and mine, Ami Amar, this is what is Maya. And so, we're starting with that type of a person with that type of attachment, Deha Vadbhir Avapyate. Deha Vadbhir means he's an as an embodied being, the one who has taken up a body. Deha Vadbhir Avapyate. So, Klesha. Klesha means the struggle. Adhiktara is greater. Adhik, is more. Tara means is a comparison. It's even greater because they have to give up the identification with the body. Only then the mind is freed to contemplate and identify itself with that avyaktam aksharam. Okay, so those whose minds, tesham, for them, chetasa, whose minds, chetasam, whose minds are asakta, asakta means attached to the avyakta, the unmanifest. That means there are people who have taken the fancy that they will contemplate on the nameless and formless being. That's fine. But comparatively, the struggle for them is adhiktara, greater. Why? For he means because of avyakta gati. Gati means the goal. Avyakta gati means the goal which is unmanifest. Avapyate is attained dukkham with difficulty by the embodied ones. Deha vadbhi. So everyone wants the easier path, and Sri Krishna is now saying, yes, these two paths are there. In the ancient days, the Vedic rishis would leave the society, community, and retreat into the forest, mountain caves, and dedicate themselves totally on the contemplation of the supreme universal consciousness. These are the meditators on Brahman. And you'll find various upasanas are given in the Upanishads where they practice that type of contemplation. Sri Ramakrishna's Advaita Guru, Totapuri, he was an Advaitin. And from childhood, he had practiced for 40 years, he practiced that spiritual discipline to arrive at that Brahma Jnana, that have that experience of being able to, of samadhi, where the ego or the I sense is merged in Brahman. For 40 years of rigorous discipline as a monk, that means not any duty and responsibility of family or job or and all those things are there, totally free. He would not stay in a place for more than 3 days because if you stay there, some attachment will develop. Such strong discipline is there. And he achieved that goal. Not many people have that type of stamina, time, uh, and energy to strive in that way. So that's a very steep path. One can reach the goal, no doubt, but for embodied person who is very much attached to the body, but has to give up all his attachment or self-identification with the body, only then the mind becomes free from the sense I am this body, I am male, I am female, I am black, brown, white, or detached from the mind. I'm doctor, engineer, or good person, or whatever is there, that also has to be taken out and totally freed from all these attachments. Then the mind develops the capacity to rise and merge in the Supreme Brahman. So, this is the path of Jnana, difficult. So, Sri Krishna in these 3 verses talks about this path of Brahma Jnana. Ye tu aksharam adirdesham अव्यक्तं पर्युपासते सर्वत्र गमचिन्तं च कूटस्थमचलं ध्रुवं सन्नियमिन्द्रियग्रामं सर्वत्र समबुद्धया ते प्राप्नुवन्ति मामेव सर्वभूतहिते रता. And then saying that, he makes a comparison that among the two, it is much more difficult for an embodied person to take up the path of Then he comes to verse number 6. Now he's trying to say, I have said this, so we'll just touch this and we'll start on this in our next class. Yetu sarvani karmani mai sanyasya matpara ananyena neva yogena mam dhyantu upasate तेषामहं समुद्धर्ता मृत्यु संसार सागरात् भमामि नचिरात् पार्थ मय्यावेशित चेतसा. Verses 6 and 7 are to be studied together. Just quickly the meaning. But for those having dedicated all actions to me, which was taught in the end of chapter 13, mat karma krit, accepted me as a supreme goal, mat parmo, mat bhakta, sangavarjita, thinking, meditate by thinking of me with single-minded concentration. So this is what he has taught there. Oh Arjuna, for them who have their minds thus absorbed in me, so that is the part they do, the devotee does. Here, the personal God becomes actively involved in the um, spiritual effort of the sadhaka, the devotee, because that is what an incarnation means. Incarnation means the compassion of the divine that takes a human form to come and help the devotee in the spiritual journey. So he says, I've said this is what the devotee should do. That much you do. The rest I will do. What is that? I become without any delay the deliverer from the sea of the world which is fraught with death. Bhavami nachirat partha maya veshita chetam. Tesham samudharata mrityu sansara sagarat. Sagara means ocean. What type of ocean? Mrityu sansara. Death is there. Mrityu sansara. Sansara means coming and going. So the cycle of birth and death, in that ocean we are drowning and rising. Samudharta. I deliver that person. Uddhar. Some uddhar. Bhagwan uddhar kar deta. He delivers such a person. Tesham aham. Who does it? He does it. So the devotee achieves the goal not solely by through the effort, self-effort, but through divine grace. Bhavami, I become. Without much delay, Nachirat Partha, to whom Mai Aveshita Chetasam. That's a condition, whose minds are absorbed in me. So this is a much easier path. Yetu Sarvani Karmani Mai Sanyasya Matpara. He does all the works, dedicating the result of that works to me. Ananyena neva yogena mam dhyayantu pasate. With single-minded devotion, unflinching devotion. So we'll take this up here because this is the beauty of Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion, which Sri Ramakrishna paid a lot of attention to and very strongly recommended. He said in Bengali, or says, Annagata Prana. You know, people who depend on food, on the existence. Annagata means that tremendous attachment to the physical body is there. So we have got this Panchakoshas, Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya Kosha, 5 sheets, like an onion, layers and layers and layers are there. The grossest is the body, Annamaya, because it's manufactured out of food. Then the vital forces, Pranamaya. Then finer then is the Manomaya, the mind, Vijnanamaya, knowledge, and Anandamaya, the blissful seat. All of these 5 layers cover the pristine, pure Atman. So if the mind is totally and so strongly attached to the most grossest level, how can that mind be so easy to free itself and contemplate on the pristine purity of the Atman? Very difficult. And that's why Sri Krishna says that path of jnana, no matter how interesting and attractive it might be, unless one has the tremendous willpower and tremendous amount of capacity to do sadhana, that is, you can reach the goal, but whether that will happen in this life, because you are then totally depending on your own. While the devotees say that same being appears in our midst as an incarnation, and he's there for that particular purpose. All I can do is dedicate myself, yetu sarvani karmani, renounce everything, have him as a supreme goal, dedicate yourself to realize that, and the divine has promised that he will do whatever is necessary. And Sri Ramakrishna says in very simple language, if you take one step towards God, he takes 10 steps towards the devotee. This is the beauty of Bhakti Yoga, more suited in this particular age. Later on, towards the end of some time, I will talk more about these little disciplines. How do I keep my mind constantly repeating on God? That's where the repetition of the mantra is very, very powerful. Leela Chintan, contemplating on the Leela, the divine play, reading the biographies of the divine, and all these wonderful things they did. Mind is kept next to the divine. In this way, one way or the other, listening to bhajans, uh, going on pilgrimages, associating with spiritual seekers, all these are different methods by which one can keep that mind anchored on the divine personality. And that's how one practices bhakti. And of course, you have got your own rituals and ceremonies in your own home that you do morning and evening. All these are beautifully explained. There is a scripture called Narad Bhakti Sutras, just like your Patanjali Yoga Sutras, the path of meditation. The bhakti teachings, the spiritual, the path of devotion, as taught by Narada. Narada was a great devotee. So he teaches that. And people might be interested to read that. Narad Bhakti Sutra in great detail talks about the path of devotion. But here you'll get the essence also. We'll leave that here and we'll continue on this next week. If you have any questions or anything you'd like to need to discuss before we continue, we'll revise verses 5, 6, and 7, and then move on next Thursday from here on. So you can send those questions and I can try to have more discussions on that as we go. Let's offer the result of our study to the divine who dwells in our own heart. Om Asatoma Sadagamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.